guys, so today I want to talk about the new revival skill mechanic that was introduced on JP Dokkan for the 6th year anniversary, and I want to sort of talk about my thoughts on it, how it works, as well as sort of some of my expectations that I have for the future of this mechanic. And obviously, if you guys weren't aware, you guys should be aware, LR Ultra Instinct Goku as well as Evolution Blue Vegeta were released on the JP version of Dokkan for the 6th year anniversary, and they brought with them a new mechanic, the revival skill. Now, typically every anniversary we get a new mechanic that's pretty impactful for the game. The only really anniversary where we didn't really get a new thing, other than the 1st year anniversary, I guess even with the first, because the 1st and 2nd year anniversaries changed the game with their leader skills, but 3, 4, and 6 really changed the game by adding new mechanics to the game. The 5th anniversary really didn't change that much, I would say. That was the skill orb update, which I would argue doesn't really have as much as an impact on the game as transformations, active skills, and now revival skills do. But basically, let's take a look at Goku here. So obviously this is Japanese, so I'll just translate it for you. But at this point, you guys probably know what the revival skill does. So from here on, this is the actual revival skill itself. It actually is baked into the passive. So this Goku, right? This Goku, once he takes 3 hits, then his revival skill can be used. But he needs to take 3 hits, and then he needs to go into the next turn below 50% HP. Once you take 3 hits and go into a turn below 50% health, there's a little icon in the bottom left corner of your screen, so it's below the Dokkan gauge on the left side. That will like sort of light up on fire, or like light up and it'll power up or whatever. And it'll basically tell you that, hey, the active skill, or not active skill, the revival skill is ready to be used. So in that turn where that little like icon is lit up, if you die, if this Goku takes the blow that would have killed you, or any other ally on that rotation, you will revive, and it says here, with 70% health once only per battle, and it will take you to the next rotation. So it basically skips this rotation and goes directly to the next rotation and has you at 70, has you set at 70% HP. So that's this Goku. This Goku needs to be hit 3 times. The condition for Vegeta is 7 times. The reason why they made it a lot, I guess, quote-unquote, easier for this Goku to get it is because of the fact that he has the built-in 70% chance to dodge. So I think at the end of the day, it actually is harder for this Goku to get the revival skill active more than this Vegeta is. But honestly, I would probably argue that the conditions for these revival skills, sorry, I keep saying active skills, the conditions for these revival skills are actually pretty strict. And this is pretty similar to what we saw for the 3rd year anniversary when they first introduced the transformation mechanic, which is interesting because 3rd year they introduced transformations, and transformations were really tough to get. I remember people were like, this is like not even, like when people evaluated the 3rd year units, the Vegeta and Gogeta, a lot of times they didn't even consider the transformations because they were so rare. But it was like, what, 6 turns below 50% health, then they fuse. So it was very difficult at that time to get that because at that point in time, there were no really long events to go through. There was only Super Battle Road, which, you know, that lasts like 3 turns at max. For most players, so it was very, very difficult to see the actual transformations and the fusions of those units. But then we got to the 4-year anniversary, and the conditions for the active skills for Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Vegeta were very, very easy to get. So I guess they sort of took the criticism that people had for the 3rd year anniversary, and where people were like, "Oh, this is too hard to get," and they took that into consideration when they were making and balancing, I guess, the Super Saiyan 4s for the 4-year anniversary. So those were very easy to get. Now we're getting to the 6th year anniversary, and I would argue that we're sort of back at the year 3 point in the game where they made these conditions pretty tough to get. And I think the main reason behind that is because of how powerful the effect actually is. Surviving a hit that would have killed you is, I mean, I can't think of a more broken ability. Like, that's the single best ability in the game that I can think of right now. And that's why I think they made it so difficult. And you could argue, you know, back during the 3rd year anniversary, once you got that fusion, like, you won. You could even argue that getting those fusions on the Gogeta and the Vegeta back then during the 3rd year anniversary, if you got those, you actually just instantly won the game. And I don't think you could say the same thing about getting these revival skills, because if you get these revival skills off, you didn't win. You just prevented yourself from dying for 1 turn. Those fusions, nothing in the game at that point in time could even remotely scratch them, and they did like a billion% more damage than anything else in the, like, it was beyond ridiculous. So yeah, I don't know what I guess my conclusion is going to be about the actual conditions here. I think they could have made it a little bit less strict. I think 50% HP is a little low. I probably would have went 70% HP. I think I would have kept the 3 hits. For Vegeta, maybe I would have bumped it down a little bit, maybe like 6. But I would have made the HP requirement higher. I think the HP requirement is the main issue that I have with the conditions here. You guys can disagree, that's fine. Let me know down below what you think about the actual conditions for the revival skills. I think what's interesting about the revival skill is that based off what we're seeing here, it's going to pretty much be the same effect for every revival skill we see. What I mean by that is, I think, like, they're never really going to change the base formula. Revival skills acting as a way for you to have like sort of a safety net behind you, and then once you die, it sets you at a certain percentage of your health. So for instance, you know, ever since the transformation mechanic was implemented, the only like additional effect that we've seen from a transformation is like those 30-year anniversary units. And then I guess also the SDR Vegito from the Worldwide Down celebration that heals you a little bit when you transform. Because I believe, maybe I'm not remembering something correctly, but there's not really many other transformations in the game that do additional things other than just having you transform. So like, I don't know, you know, Angel Frieza that came out recently on Global, he transforms turn 1, that's his condition that lets him do that. But on top of transforming, he doesn't really do anything else. The actual active skill of him transforming does not do anything additional to him transforming. So I don't really know if they would ever expand upon just this mechanic of reviving yourself. Like, I don't know if they would do something like, yeah, okay, you revive at 70% health, but then you also, you know, get 100% defense for 1 turn or something. I don't think they would do that. I think the main thing is they just want to keep this effect as like the main draw to the revival skill. Like, you just recover a certain percent of health when you revive. Now, it's possible they change this number for other units we get in the future. 70% is actually a lot of health. So you're healing for 70% when you revive. I could see that number dropping to 50% maybe for some units, maybe even like 10%. Maybe we're talking about like Saiyan Saga Vegeta, who gets up like 100 billion times in that fight or something. And maybe he's like, because I guess they want to like recreate the series. That Vegeta's almost dead the entire fight. So maybe they have him only come back at 20% health or something like that. So, you know, there's different things they could do with the percentage, but I think the base effect is going to remain the same. And then the other thing I want to talk about quickly is the actual effect is so powerful that, again, I don't think they're going to change the effect itself, but the way that they can use this effect to balance other teams and make them stronger and buff other teams and categories is by making the restrictions less strict. So for instance, teams that need a buff, right? World Tournament. Like, if you guys saw the fight between Goku and Ma Jr., this might be one of the reasons why they haven't released a Goku and Ma Jr. unit yet, is because they know this category specifically really needs a giant buff. Same thing with Namekian, same thing with Dragon Ball Saga. Well, I guess they technically wouldn't be on Dragon Ball Saga, but World Tournament, Namekian, and Giant too, actually. Giant category definitely needs a massive buff. So what if they had a Ma Jr. unit that you know, had revival skill, but the way that they would design it to make, you know, him super powerful to buff all these categories that need it, is instead of having him have to take 7 hits and be below 50% health, what if it's just always active? What if it's like a pseudo version of Angel Frieza's transformation active skill conditions, where instead of having to take 3 hits, instead of having to be below 50% health, every time he's on rotation, the revival skill will be active. So as long as he's on rotation and you die with him on rotation, you will revive, and that will trigger the revival skill once during the fight. That could be a good way that they could use this sort of mechanic to buff old teams, is they just give really easy restrictions for the revival skill to these categories. Like something like Pure Saiyans, I would argue definitely doesn't need the buff at all. But if they wanted to give Pure Saiyans one, I don't think they would give him no restriction on the revival skill. Maybe something like I just talked about, Grade 8 Vegeta from the Saiyan Saga. Maybe he has a condition similar to this Vegeta, where it's 7 hits below 50% health. Maybe it's even lower than that. Maybe it's you know, 5 hits, 40% health, because that Vegeta again was so close to dying at so many points during that fight. Me personally, when I think of revival skills, these 2 units do not come to mind. Or these 2 characters do not come to mind. Like, yeah, Goku was knocked down in his fight versus Jiren, but Goku gets knocked down in his fight against every villain ever. So does Vegeta, basically, right? So I don't know, if I'm thinking about a revival mechanic where a unit comes back to fight again, I'm not really thinking of this guy or this guy as like the first thing that comes to my mind. I'm thinking more along the lines of villains, like Frieza surviving the Spirit Bomb. That would be a good revival mechanic. Or Cell, like the int cell we already have in the game. You know, blowing up and then coming back. That's a revival skill we should definitely see in the future. And then like Boo. You know, Boo getting just blown away by the final explosion from Majin Vegeta and then regenerating and coming back to life. Those are all really high and good candidates for revival skills, I think. So this definitely has a lot of potential. And the other thing also to mention as well is that I feel like, you know, going along their idea of why they created support memories in the first place, where they can utilize sort of these animations that are not specifically pertaining to battle scenes, but scenes outside of battle. I guess they can sort of use that same trope for these revival skills, because Frieza coming back from the Spirit Bomb, I mean, like him stepping on the rock and doing that iconic scene where he, you know, is revived and people are like, and Goku and Piccolo, he like shoots Piccolo, he blows up Krillin. That whole like I guess sequence of events there is probably not something that you would see from an active skill. Same thing with like the Boo revival skill, or not revival skill, the Boo, like, you know, coming back from the final explosion. That could be a good revival skill scene that we wouldn't have otherwise been able to see from just a normal active skill. So I think this mechanic is good. I'm curious to see how they handle the conditions moving on in the future. That's pretty much all I had here. I just wanted to start a discussion on this mechanic because I do think it's an interesting one. It definitely is them thinking outside of the box, I think, and I definitely do like that a lot. It's why anniversary time is so important to me for this game, as a fan of this game for 6 years now almost. Because this game has been around for so long, they need to do things like this to spice things up. And yeah, even if it's pretty difficult to get this revival skill off, I still think it's cool to have it. And you're not going to see it every single fight, but I don't think that's what their intention was. But let me know down below what you guys think about this mechanic, as well as some things you'd like to see in the future, as well as units you'd like to see with this mechanic in the future. Hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I will see you all in the next one.